Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. It's raining outside again this week, and it's the kind of rain that's just a mist, so it's just in the air. It's not actually, doesn't feel like it's raining at all. It just feels like you're going through one of those misting things to cool you off. Anyhow, I can't sit outside, which is very disappointing, so that might amplify the background noise. Okay, we are here to talk about several books. The first one is Children of the Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyami. It's a YA book, it's a magical fantasy, and I had to do it by audio, 15 hours, and they were a really hard 15 hours. From start to finish, I was, oh no, this is gonna take forever. And because I do a lot of my reading in the daytime, I did manage to get some knitting done. So I was able to start a sweater, and this is the cuff to a winter sweater. It's going to have a bit of a ruffle. I just love the color. And I also, because to me the knitting turned out to be way more important than the book, so that says something. Okay, this is the start of a sock, and I really love the colors. Anyhow, Children of Blood and Bone. What was it about? It's about four youth, sort of between the ages of about 17 to 20, 21. We're never given, I just can't get their names. They're in my head, but I never saw it in print, so I haven't got the names embedded in my head to be able to. Inan is the prince, and he's sort of 21. I mean, logically, he'd have to be around 21, just given the ages of the others. He is the prince, and his dad, King Saren, is just crazy batshit, crazy. He's got such a hate on for magic. He's killed all the magi in the kingdom. He didn't kill the children because I guess there was some kind of storyline where you don't come into your powers until 13, but you need to have these magical artifacts in order to achieve it. And so there's a sort of a complex ritual that you need to go through at puberty in order to attain your magic. Not everyone gets their magic, but a marker is that you've got white hair. And so anybody who is a white-haired person is a magi without power and have been enslaved or have been diminished in their communities, or it's just been awful. And so these kids, a lot of them saw their parents being murdered and have consequently had horrible childhoods. So that's what Dad, the king, has done. Inan has believed his dad's rhetoric for all of his life. He has a sister, the princess, whose name I completely have, it's just gone right out of the brain pan. She has come across a magical artifact and has watched her best friend servant be murdered because it turns out she has magical powers. And so the story's off and running. The other side of the story is Zayla and Zane. They're just young children in this country somewhere along the line, and they have watched their parents be murdered because they were magi. So Zayla has the white hair, her brother Zane doesn't. He's a really tremendous athlete, and she comes through a whole bunch of really complicated reasons, ends up in contact with a magical object and has to rescue I'm going to call her Alana. I know that's wrong, but it's kind of close. Alana. She has to rescue her. And so the princess and the pauper run. Zane helps to rescue them. Inan has to chase them. It's all about the magical artifacts. It's all about preventing magic from happening. It's 15 hours of this kind of happening over and over again. So there's an adventure. The characters are interesting. We hear three of the voices. We never hear Zane's voices. Occasionally we hear him voicing his messages to the others verbally, but the point of view for a chapter is never his, which he's really just there as the strong man. He serves as a foil to the other three. I think there's like a bit of a romance building, maybe between Alana and him, but certainly affection. He looks after her because he recognizes that she's kind of a princess with no skill set outside of the palace. So he's caring. Whether it turns to love or not, I don't know. Book 2 and 3. Inan has encountered Zayla and is completely obsessed with her and just loathes her. So he is not only sort of after the artifact retrieval, he's also going to kill the girl. Kill the girl, kill the girl. So the four of them are off on this crazy journey around much of the country, the kingdom. And this is where things start to fall apart for me. First of all, the length. The length was just so unwieldy. As I'm trying to tell you the beginning of the story, I'm kind of surprised I remember because so many things happened. It's like that piece which was kind of pivotal for setting up the relationships and so on. It just falls into the past. There's so much other that happens. Okay, the timeline, they've got about a month. They've been challenged to go to a solstice on a secret island, have to perform a ritual. They've got to find the 3 magical artifacts. They're hither and yon trying to get this all together. There's just no way. I need plausibility. There's been a couple of other books where the plot and the characters completely disappear for me if I don't have plausibility. And, it doesn't matter to me whether they've got wings and have to fly. That's not what I mean. I just mean if the author has set a timeline in place, there's just no way you can cross a desert and do a huge battle and come back and do the mountains and stuff like in 4 days. It's just that kind of thing drives me crazy. Just stay in the desert. There was a whole lot of other plausibility things that were minor. They're in the desert. They're in a coliseum. There's slaves that are going to be, challenged is to survive these battles. Well, it's not just like the lions and the Romans and so forth. It's these boats come out, and there's 10 boats in this flooded arena, and they've got to, sink these boats. And it's not they're not just like little boats. It's like deep water that these 10, 15 boats have to float on. And you think about, okay, how much water is that going to take in a desert? Everybody else is dying of thirst, but there's plenty for these battle scenes. No. I mean, it was a great idea, but make it plausible. Okay, then the other point where I could sort of overlook the others because, once you've gotten past the arena with way too much water in the middle of a desert, everything else just becomes, okay, she's going to do that. Well, finally, where I completely just was enduring it, was the secret island comes out at certain coordinates. And I can understand maybe Inan, so this is a spoiler, Inan getting to the secret island or the hidden island because he knows the coordinates. I can imagine him kind of catching up, not the entire king's army. No. That's just we just finished watching some international rescue thing for a sub, and it was they had 4 or 5 days to get to this rescue mission, and boats in the area were able to get there. But the entire American Army or Navy couldn't have got there in order to. No, it takes a while to travel across water. Water is not the fastest, transportation route, especially by sail. Oh dear, I wanted this story to be so much better. There were other things that... Okay, the other thing, way back at the beginning, Zane and Zayla, brother and sister. Kind of understand that, can't abide it. Why can't the author have given him a different name, especially since he wasn't a main character? He wasn't given a point of view. Her nickname is Zaya. Sounds a lot like Zane. Zayla, Zaya, Zane. And I'm thinking, no, why didn't you call her Tabitha or something? It's like, give me something to latch the picture on. And so I kept getting those two mixed up. And many chapters opened with the point of view person shouting something. Dang! Inan! Alana! And I'm thinking, oh, my ears. And it's like, oh. I hated the style of this book. I wanted it to do so much better. There's no way I'm going to read the others. No, I'm so sorry. I wanted this to be so much more. It's a book club book for my Woozles book club. We're going to be meeting on the 19th of July to discuss it. I'm going to be really curious. If people agree with me, I won't bother mentioning it in a further video. But if everyone has got different points of view and thinks it was successful, I'll come back and tell you about it. I will not eat my words, but I will give you the opinions of other people, because some readers do like a lengthy fantasy, and I'm like, again, I don't have a problem with that. It needs to be, there has to be a reality component to it, in the sense that if time doesn't shift, then, you know, eating a meal takes the time it takes to eat a meal. Sleeping takes the time it takes to sleep. So you can't, and yeah, you got to have time travel as part of your book if you want to accomplish what she was accomplishing in a month. Okay, so that's the end of that rant. Yeah, maybe it's better as a not audio thing. Oh, well, I should say that, you know, to give credit where credit due, and I will do that in the notes below. The reader of that book really was terrific. She had an accent that was really good. She really did emotions. She really did panic. She shouted when she needed to shout. She really did an excellent job of doing the audio book. Like, no discredit to her at all. All right. The other thing I do in June, but didn't because we were camping, so now I'm doing it in July, is I catch up on my Newbery Prize readings. And so I'm doing 2021 and 2022, I think. Yes, that's what I'm doing this month. So instead of going far into the past, I'm doing recent books. Now, I saw this go past. Let's see. Hitler Youth, Growing Up in Hitler's Shadow by Susan Campbell Bartoletti. First of all, I didn't realize it was nonfiction, so this did win the prize for nonfiction. And as a nonfiction book, it is really good. I mean, this is a subject that's kind of hard for me to get my head around. My parents were in Holland. There were a lot of relatives and themselves who really had several unpleasant experiences, and I also know from friends and more distant family there were a lot of unpleasant experiences during World War II. So it's not something that I'm interested really in enjoying. Does that make sense? They're historical facts, need to know and do know, but it's not something I want to like spend my time being entertained by. So I thought this was nonfiction, and that's why I didn't pick it up. Now, as a fiction book, sorry. I thought it was fiction. That's why I didn't pick it up. It is nonfiction, and it is excellent. I think, you know, total kudos to the author. Now, what she's done, which is, I think, extremely interesting, is she has picked up the histories of 3, 6, 9, 12 young people who were between the ages of about 13 to about 18 during the time of Hitler Youth. Now, one of the things I didn't realize is that the Hitler Youth were deliberately targeted by the propaganda arm of Hitler's regime. And the goal was to train these kids to manipulate them into becoming future warriors. And Hitler was not allowed to, with the Treaty of Versailles, he was not allowed to build up his armies or his armaments or anything like that. So what he did was he had a game plan, train the youth so that when they are of age to go to war, they are already trained as a paramilitary group. And so all the kids are doing campfires and, you know, digging. Why would you dig a ditch for fun? But anyhow, that's what they're doing. They're having a lot of fun playing soldier. And so when war finally breaks out, he quickly has a huge number of 18, 17, and 16-year-olds who are already trained. And so he doubles his forces in a matter of months. And that keeps going for a little while until he starts to run out of Hitler Youth. And I mean that literally. I mean, a lot of kids died in his war. And the other part is kids who did not participate in the war actively. And so he takes, this author takes a look at some of the kids who were more on the resistance side of things and who suffered for that. And then there were a couple who were, sort of early in the war years, sort of, what would you call them? They're like sacrificial lambs, if you like. You sort of have to read the whole thing to get a sense of what I'm talking about. This book has amazing footage, or photographs. Those are children in a children's hospital prior to being euthanized. It's just, there's all kinds of images that put this in the context of the adults' war. The kids are collecting all kinds of metal objects for melting down. There, some of the kids, oh yeah, one of the kids we see is someone who told on their parents. She was being trained as a Hitler Youth and made some comment, and her parents contradicted her, and she went back and told the youth leader, and the parents were then arrested. She didn't see him for 3 weeks. Lucky that they weren't killed, because the death sentence was just willy-nilly. Just, you know, there were all kinds of reasons why the death sentence could be instilled. So then what she does is, towards the end of the book, some of the children don't become unindoctrinated, they just kind of remain stuck in their thinking patterns. And so when the war is over and they've survived it, they move on to their adulthood. And it's not until they, you know, many years later start to get a sense of just how indoctrinated they had been. There's other kids who early in the war years realize this is not good and are either trying to go into the resistance side of things or are just holding their breaths and waiting. So she does go to the survivors and sort of get a picture backwards, as well as to, you know, what were they thinking at the time, and also what are they thinking now. So I thought it was a great book. It really put a number of things into context for me. I knew that there was the youth component, but I didn't realize how important it was to the rhetoric of the Third Reich. I also didn't realize that, you know, how intense it was, and I didn't realize that, I thought it was more along the Girl Guides, Boy Scouts kind of thing. I didn't realize how absolutely thorough it was. Some of these kids are trained as medics by the time they're 16. So, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, like, I've read a couple of books. Maybe it's all, I'm trying to think if it's All's Quiet on the Front, All's Quiet on the Western Front. I'll have to double check. Where towards the end of the war, 13-year-olds are showing up in the trenches, and they've been trained as young soldiers, but they're 13 years old. So what are the chances? So if a 13-year-old deserts, they can be shot. Like, what are you thinking? This is a kid who's never been away from home and is asked to, it's one thing to shoot a gun in a field at crows. Anyhow, I didn't realize just how desperate the ends of the war was for the filling in of the trenches by the Germans, and I also made a huge assumption that the adults were totally in sync with what the Hitler Youth were doing, and there really was huge generational differences between what the adults were thinking and having to go to war unwillingly for a lot of people. A lot of people didn't want to be in the war any more than we would if we were being drafted for something. So, excellent book. I think it really deserved to win the Newbery for nonfiction. And then we come across a totally different, this is a picture book, Watercress by Andrea Wong, pictures by Jason Chin, who is also a Caldecott honoree. And this is a really sweet little story about a young girl whose parents are Chinese, and as they're driving along the road in America, they're Chinese immigrants, they see watercress, and so they stop and pick the watercress, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Like, it's already bad enough all the kids in the school think I'm so weird, and so she doesn't want to be doing this. And then get home, and there's all this stuff that she has to eat for dinner that came out of a ditch, and she's like, no, thank you. And so there's an interesting generational moment that happens that I don't want to spoil, but the art is so lovely, and it's a nice story. And just to finish up, I'm going to leave you with a cliffhanger. The Arrows of Mercy by Jill McLean. And Jill McLean is one of my favorite middle grade authors, and she's a personal friend. She's in my book club, and this is a self-published book by Tell Well, and she has done an amazing job of marketing this book. I think my husband told me that it was doing really well on the what is that, number of books on a bestsellers list, I think so. And she's done an excellent job of marketing an excellent book. And we've got Edmund, who's come back from the wars, and this is in the years of, is it 1600s? No, sorry, 1300s. And he's been quite marred in his face by a dog, and he's an archer with those great big bows and arrows, and so he was like a sort of a sniper with his arrows, and he's come home, and he has, as part of his survival tactics, he has imagined a relationship with a young girl that he had thought he had proposed to, and upon arrival, that may be the case, but he's sort of realizing that a lot of it was in his own head, and his brother is a complete bully and brat, and older brother, and continues to be that way. So coming home is, I don't think he was expecting, to have a ticker tape parade, but I think he was hoping to find a place where he could just rest. He's been through a lot, and home is not turning out to be that great of a place to be. So I'm only partway through. I'm really enjoying it. He has the heart of a poet, and so we see that kind of thinking or poetry is not part of being a poor person's lifestyle. And certainly you don't have the pen and paper to write it down, so he's got to do it all in his mind. But so we're starting to see his inner, like his external turmoil, but we're also beginning to see his inner turmoil as a poet, and not really having, at this point in the story, not really having any place where he's understood as a human. He's sort of understood as a place marker in the life of the village, as like what in the hierarchy he's understood as you inhabit this space, and that's as much as the other villagers are willing to give him. And so we're on quite a journey with Edmund, and I think it's getting excellent reviews, so I have to type an email and tell her I'm enjoying it. We don't see each other over the summer. We've all got so many different places we have to be in the summer that we won't meet till September. Okay, that's it for me. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I'll see you next week, hopefully in the garden. Bye-bye for now.